What's going on, everybody? Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. And of course, you know my co-host, the one and only Perri Goldstein. You can find her on Twitter or X at Perri_Goldstein. Perri, welcome back. How can we bash Alex for not being here today?
No, we can't. He's taking just a little hiatus. He'll be back with us soon. Alex, we miss you. Happy to be here, though.
Yes, I'm happy you are here as well. Thank you for actually showing up when you're. I'm just kidding, Alex. We do miss you. We do love you. Alex will be back soon. He's transitioning from one city to another, and obviously there's a lot that goes into that. So Alex will be back before you know it. But Perri, since you are here, how are you doing?
I'm good. We were just talking before we started recording that we are 4 months almost to the day away from the season, which is really weird. Being on the other side of the draft is like kind of a big off-season milestone. Now we get to just hone in on the new Packers and focus on training camp, which is going to be here before we know it. I know you were just at rookie minicamp, which is awesome. So it's just, we're flying through this thing.
Yeah, we got about 2 weeks left here where it's going to be, kind of finishing up some of the NFL draft deep dives into all the players and all the presents that we're still unwrapping, which is super fun. And then it's literally OTAs and minicamp, and those will go super fast as well. We kind of get that little hiatus for about 5-6 weeks, and then training camp, preseason, family night even before that, preseason, and then all of a sudden September 6th, Packers in Brazil. It's going to go so freaking fast. But I thought today, we've obviously been doing a lot of the deep dives. We just had mini camp. I thought today would be kind of a great day to just sort of take a pause and sort of look back. Because in a real sort of way, the offseason of change is kind of behind us. It's not to say that Goody couldn't make another free agent signing or something couldn't get done. We know there's going to probably be a big Jordan Love contract mixed in here somewhere. But for the most part, coaching changes, draft picks, free agents leaving, it's all done. So I figured today would kind of be a great day to just sort of take a pause and look back at everything that's happened so far and just kind of do a really fun off-season superlatives, some of our biggest surprises, biggest changes, biggest disappointments, all of it. We'll just kind of go through all of it today. But Perri, are you ready to kick things off right away and go through our off-season superlatives?
I'm ready. I love this.
Let's do it. So let's start with a fun one right off the bat. I'm going to let you begin. The biggest off-season surprise for the Packers so far?
I think this one, so there were a few, mostly because the Packers kind of went and did like had a very non-Packersy offseason. But I want to say how involved they were in free agency. I think that was probably my biggest surprise. I know we as fans want them to be. We always want them to be, but they never are. They're always the bridesmaid, never the bride. They're always in the mix. They never actually get the player, right? This year they got the player and then some. They got two guys who were like top, picks. They like finally, solidified the deal. They were the bride twofold. So that was kind of this biggest offseason surprise for me. A good surprise, a happy surprise. I took this one as like a positive superlative.
No, it's great.
And it was mainly because it's just not something that they normally do. And also I think because they didn't necessarily come into the offseason with like a ton of cap space and a ton of money. So it's like, the question was like, what are they going to do with what they have? And they really did a lot with it.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs clearly goes as a surprise. I don't think anyone was going into that day one of free agency remotely thinking Josh Jacobs. Like, yep, Josh Jacobs is probably going to be like, no one even discussed Josh Jacobs as somebody who could potentially come to Green Bay. And then Xavier McKinney was sort of the opposite, where you're like, man, if they could have one free agent that you could sign to this team that would just be the picture perfect guy, it's Xavier McKinney. And then they went and actually did that. So they kind of hit both ends of the spectrum of like, you never expected it, but you were like, this would be just the dream signing. And they're like, yeah, we agree. We're going to go get that guy. And then a guy totally off the radar that you just never saw coming. That's certainly, that day in and of itself was the biggest surprise. I'm actually surprised myself that I get to do my biggest surprise. I had a backup because I thought the biggest surprise was going to be something that you covered right away. And in a way, it's the Josh Jacobs part, but in a bigger way, to me, it's the tandem with Aaron Jones and the entire Aaron Jones thing. And there is a piece of it that maybe we could have saw coming. I know Tom Silverstein had that report like right away, like, hey, if they don't get matched up on salary terms, like Aaron Jones could potentially be released. And we're all just like, okay, let's settle down. Aaron Jones is going to be a Packer. I said, like, take it to the bank. I can't imagine a scenario, especially the way that he ran towards the end of the season. He was the engine of the team per usual. And you're just thinking cooler heads will obviously prevail. Yeah. Jones will figure out a way to take some sort of pay cut like he usually does to stay a Packer. The Packers will find a way to make it so that it is still a solid deal for Aaron Jones. And he's going to remain that engine, that locker room guy that's going to be this big time piece of the Packers. He'll retire a Packer. We all thought that, I think, to some extent. And then to go from that to Josh Jacobs is a Packer. And then you're thinking like, all right, how do Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones work together? And then quickly to have that Band-Aid right ripped off. And you're like, nope, Aaron Jones is being released. And then to quickly transition the next day to Aaron Jones is a Minnesota Viking. So in hindsight, we can sort of, I think, put the, at least follow the trail a little bit better and see like, all right, I can see the why, I can see the vision. I could see how this could happen. I could understand why Aaron Jones would be maybe upset to be asked to take another pay cut right away again. I could see him going to Minnesota that desperately needed a running back. It all kind of fits together, but still, I think if you would have told anyone going into that San Francisco game and then watching him run how he did, just the entire postseason, everything, that Aaron Jones would be a Minnesota Viking to start 2024, I think all of our jaws just would have hit the floor. So it might be clear, it might be obvious, but that still has to be my biggest surprise of the offseason.
Fair. That was also on the list. So had to choose one, but yeah.
And the other one I had on this list really quick was, I think we also just sort of quickly erased, like, I put together like a tournament of 32, or I think it was 32 potential defensive coordinators for the Packers of like, who would you pick? And like, we had kind of all these names that could potentially fit in the connections with Matt LaFleur. Nobody had Jeff Hafley on that radar too. So I think we're all very pleased with who they hired and excited about Jeff Hafley, and his initial press conference was fantastic, all of it. But that still was like a surprise in the moment of everyone had these ideas of who it would be. And then it's like, Jeff Hafley's a new defensive coordinator. And we're all just like quickly Googling Jeff Hafley, like, all right, oh yeah, defensive coordinator or head coach, Boston College. And then that was the other one, but Aaron Jones for me. And I think that Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney right there with it.
Jeff is my answer for another superlative. So we'll get there.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Let's go next one. Favorite offseason move. I'll let you start with this one again.
I mean, it's Xavier McKinney.
All right.
It's an easy answer. I mean, you said it, right? It's the Pack. He is like, he was 1A on everyone's list of like who fits so perfectly in this defense, who is going to fill like the biggest need, the biggest hole. He's like one of the best safeties since he entered the league. It would be like dream scenario, almost like pipe dream. Is it going to happen? I'm sure he's going to have this like big market. Don't know if the Packers can pay him. It's going to be like, if they do, he's going to be like the signing. Yeah. And then somehow, some way it ends up being not just the only move, but like the big move that they do make. And to my earlier point, they always go out and try to get one of these guys. And sometimes, most of the time, they don't actually end up in Green Bay, right? It's not like they haven't tried to make some of these splash signings in the past, but this time it all comes together and it ends up working out. And I think it's fair to be incredibly hype about how he's going to fit in the secondary, how he's going to fit in this defense as a whole. Like, just already, I'm sure you've watched so much tape on him, like just the way that what he's going to bring, everything the coaches have said about him too, as like a leader, the way he's already like enmeshed with Jair. I see that, like, I've seen photos of them at OTAs, just all of it. So that was my favorite. I think it elevates it, like knowing that he was kind of like the guy a lot of people wanted, like, and the Packers got him. So
very easy to be excited about Xavier McKinney. And he was my backup on this list as well, in case you took the first one. But for me, I think we forget too that we went into the offseason sort of expecting Joe Barry to kind of go or like they were going to move on from Joe Barry. but we didn't know 1,000,000% for sure. And there was still this sort of like overarching, oh my goodness, like they could potentially keep him for another season. And it just felt like that would have been, maybe catastrophic is the wrong word, but it just would have like, it pushed everything back. And we don't know how Jeff Hafley is going to be as a defensive coordinator, how this new defense is going to work, but they made the right move. They made it quickly. It sounds like they had a fantastic process of interviewing all of these different potential defensive coordinator candidates. And then to bring in Jeff Hafley, who's been very impressive so far, just the first glimpses of this defense in rookie mini camp. I really liked what I saw already. And then just not only that, but bringing in Anthony Campanelli, who some people had as a potential defensive coordinator. He was on my 32 list of people who could potentially be the defensive coordinator, to get him as that linebackers coach. And then Derek Ansley, another person who has that defensive coordinator experience, to get him as the defensive passing game coordinator. Like there's just so much to like about this staff that they put together. So to move on from Joe Barry, correctly so, and then to, I think, hire this, what seems like a fantastic staff, that to me is my favorite offseason move, because it needed to be done and they did it.
Yes. It's so interesting that you bring that up, because it's the first move they made. Right. And so you're like, wow, I have to go back so far into like the early off season, but you're right. I mean, it would have been incredibly detrimental to the progress of this team if they had kept him. Right. Hard to pick favorite offseason move as someone getting fired.
It's fair.
Right. But you're correct. I mean, like moving on from a coach that was clearly not the right fit for this team and the skill set and the players is a fair choice.
I'll just say this, like if they did everything else the exact same that they did this offseason, but Joe Barry is still the defensive coordinator, it just feels like it's an incomplete offseason. It just
100%.
feels like there's something that just gnaws at the back of you of like, it feels wrong. It wouldn't have felt right. So I think that's why, to me, it had to be number one on my list. All right, favorite draft pick. I'll kick this one off. I'm just going Edgerrin Cooper. And I think getting him at the beginning of round 2, not only getting him at the beginning of round 2, but being able to trade back, pick up some extra draft capital that they would eventually use to move up and get some guys, but to then get, I think, the guy at linebacker for Green Bay, a piece that they've really been missing. He's far more instinctual as I go back and watch him on tape. He's going to fly around the ball. I think he's going to fit very well with Quay. I just think that this brings an entirely different attitude and attacking mentality to that middle of the defense. We've seen so many of these really great defenses solidified at that linebacker position. They didn't skimp. They got their top linebacker in the draft. And that, for me, was the best draft pick for the Packers.
Yeah. Cooper was my favorite pick in this draft as well. But he's kind of tied, I think, at this point with Javon Bullard. The more I watch Bullard, I mean, we have been talking, I think, since they signed McKinney, right? Like, amazing signing, but that room still needs like additions. He needs his pairing, his buddy, his co-pilot, whatever you want to call it. Like, they need that dude. And Javon Bullard is that dude. I mean, you watch him on tape and he is like, I think you called him a heat-seeking missile.
Yep.
That is how he plays. They are going to be an incredible like 1-2 tandem back there. He plays with such an intensity, like a ferocity. I think that goes for a lot of the draft picks I find that the Packers took this year, just the attacking mentality, just like this. I don't know, the way they hit, the way they tackle, it's different. And I think Bullard is going to be kind of step into that safety 2 role like pretty easily early on. And I would be hard pressed to see him giving it up. It depends on what Hafley, I think, obviously wants to do and like where they're going to play him, whether it's going to be free, whether it's going to be in the box, but whether he's going to play in the slot. I think he can do a lot of those things just based on how he played and where he played in college. And that's the other thing, super versatile. And I think that's going to be really, really important. So I'm super pumped about him. And again, like amazing value for where they got him.
Downhill and attacking is just like over and over for all of these defensive players. And I think that has to have you excited. And I think it gives you a vision into what type of players they want in this Jeff Hafley defense and what type of defense Jeff Hafley is going to play. Every single pick is like, all right, downhill attacking, blitzing, like they're just unafraid. And that's exactly what you want from defenders. And the other thing too, is if you are going to go sign a Xavier McKinney and have that leader in the defensive backfield, all right, go get 3 safeties that are hard workers, that are football junkies, that are going
Mhm.
to want to learn from Xavier McKinney. And they go get 3 guys in Evan Williams, Kitano Ladapo, and then Javon Bullard that are going to have this perfect mentor in Xavier McKinney for all 3 of those guys, as well as Anthony Johnson Jr. You made over that safety room in a significant way. I've joked like there is no unit of measurement possible for the distance between the last safety group and this current safety room. And it's really easy to be excited about that.
Yeah.
All right, your biggest remaining area of concern,
Okay, this was the hardest one for me to answer.
which is a good thing.
I actually, so it depends, I think, what you mean around area of concern. If you're asking about a position group, I actually don't have one.
Okay.
I think they've addressed, um, I think they've addressed all of the needs pretty well. I think for me, maybe putting it all together is probably it. I think like year one in a new defensive scheme, there's probably going to be some growing pains. So we're very excited about all these players. I think there's a lot on paper to love. I think if they come out early on in the season and it doesn't look as great as we envision it, that's a possibility. Just given that they have never played together. It's first time Jeff Hafley's ever DC'd in the league, right?
Yep.
I think that's, but like genuinely in terms of like positional areas, like they have the depth now at OL, they have the depth now at safety, they finally have the depth like built out at inside linebacker. You know, they have the wide receivers, they've got the depth at running back. I mean, this team on paper, it looks pretty good. And I don't mean that as like a homer take, like trying to be like as objective as humanly possible. I think they've set themselves up really nicely going into the season.
Hard to argue that. It's really, really hard. And I said, like, one of the things that I've been most impressed, especially with the draft, is just attacking all of those needs that they had. And it's really hard to look at any one area of the roster and be like, oh, don't know how they're going to survive this. I have 2 smaller ones. First of all, I still have some concerns at kicker. And we all hope that Anders takes that jump. They got competition. They've got Greg Joseph. They've got Jack Podlesny for now. We'll see if he makes it after they need to add 3 more players to the roster, at least from the reported signings that they have from the rookie minicamp tryout guys. But they definitely are going to have competition there. But that still gives me a little bit of concern. And then I'll just say this, like, when you have this brand new shiny toy, and I know he's not like new, but like based on what he did last season in Jordan Love, that feels like he's going to be phenomenal. And you have all of these amazing weapons around him. The biggest thing that you just want is a fantastic offensive line to make sure that you're protecting him. And that is, and I've talked about this all offseason, that his eyes don't have to drop and that you're not watching that offensive line. Now, I love the optionality that they've given themselves by drafting a Jordan Morgan, by getting the 2 day 3 selections to give you a little bit more depth, by signing an Andre Dillard. Just the amount of players that they have that you feel like, all right, there could be options here, is so much different than it was just a few weeks ago, even, that I think, Goody's done a good job of addressing that. I'll still say this, though. There's 2 guys that I feel extremely comfortable with on the offensive line, and that's Zach Tom and Elton Jenkins. And everyone else, to some extent, to some level, is still a projection of what they're going to be this season. And you feel really good in the fact that you're carrying over, at worst, Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, which was their offensive line, basically minus half of, John Runyon Jr. every game, that led them on that run towards the second half of last season. Now, and then you've got more guys that can hopefully come in and give you depth. So you have that going for you in a major way. But I just still have I have 2 guys I can really, really trust. And I would love to have as every NFL team would, I'd love to have 7 guys I can really, really trust. So that's where I'm at.
I think for me, the floor feels higher for the offensive line now going into camp. So I feel a little bit more comfortable. And I think if there's one position group that I trust this coaching staff to figure it out, it's that position group. And to your point, right? They brought in a first round pick, and if push comes to shove and they have to trot out that starting 5 from last season, it's not we're looking at probably a better O-line than maybe half the league. So
very easily.
Right. So again, the floor is higher, is kind of how I'm looking at it. And I think it'll be even higher when we get to week 1 and they've had time in camp.
It's a great way of putting it. With that said, now that we've gone over our biggest area of concern, your biggest area of strength.
Is this might be a cop out? I don't know. Quarterback. Hi. The Packers have their franchise QB. I mean, I know we're having so much fun talking about all the new guys coming in and all the draft picks, and I've been enjoying watching them, but like, lest us not forget where we left the season, which was that Jordan Love's first season as a starter led them to divisional round.
Yep.
You know, like, the Packers have their guy. He's about to get paid. I know that going into the second year now, and I'm going to get into this, I think, in some of our later questions, like, there's expectations. I just mentioned the floor. The floor is now higher for Jordan Love. Like, he's going to have to not only look as good as last year, but potentially better, especially if he gets the contract. Like, there's a lot that is going into this, but Jordan is going to be viewed going into the season as a top guy. Like, that's how he's being talked about, as he should. He is the leader of this team. I mean, even the draft picks are talking about what it's like being in the locker room with him and the way he's carrying himself, etc. Like, you build around, they have someone to build around. Like, we just watched how many 6 teams take a quarterback in the first round because they don't have right. They don't have that guy. The Packers have that guy. I could keep going, but like, your strength is 10.
It's crazy to me how we're already to the point. Like, you got to that point with Favre where players like, yeah, I just got drafted and I just ran into like Brett Favre and like, yeah, I talked to Brett Favre. And then it's like, yeah, I just got drafted and like Aaron Rodgers is here. And I got to shake hands with Aaron Rodgers. And like, and now all of a sudden, like, you hear the rookies coming in and it's like, yeah, I got a text from Jordan Love. And then I dapped him up in the hallway and I'm like, this is Jordan Love. And he's like, it's like, we're already to that point where like guys are getting in here and being like, oh my goodness, I get to play with Jordan Love. It's a crazy thing to think about coming off of his very first season as a starter, but it's totally true. I love that answer, actually. Mine, if you thought yours was a cop-out, mine is a total way more of a cop-out, but I actually totally believe it, so I'm going to say it nonetheless. Their overall youth, competition, and the locker room all is sort of like one ball of togetherness. And what I mean by that is you have this team that's built to grow together on the same timeline, the same wavelength, a bunch of guys, just football junkies that want to get better. You could see it last year in the fact that they lost some games early and they came together and are just like, no, this is not going to be our identity. We're better than this. We're going to find ways to win. They found ways to win. They go on a run. They make it competitive in the divisional round, probably should have won the game. And now you're adding 5 more top 100 guys to that. Still a, very young safety in Xavier McKinney that's in the prime of his career. You know, Josh Jacobs, who, well, maybe not quote unquote young for a running back, is still younger than Aaron Jones was. Like, you just have this unbelievable core that's all on the same timeline. And now they're all, again, like, that wide receiver room is insane competition. You've got competition all over the place. I just love that entire aspect of this team. And we're just going to continue to watch them, hopefully continue to grow together. And that's what I'm so excited about. And I think it's a real legitimate, true strength.
Yeah, they are. And they just infuse some more like young talent together. And it's going to be really fun.
Totally agreed. All right, let's go least favorite offseason move.
Releasing Aaron Jones. This is where I had this move listed for me. I think we've done our best to kind of explain it and find rationale in it in some way. I think I've come to terms with it from like a roster building standpoint, but I think there's also like still a perfectly reasonable way of looking at it and being like, I still don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just still the least favorite thing that happened this offseason, for a number of reasons, from like the fact that they lost, like, to your point, like a locker room leader, a guy that is going to be probably in the Packers Hall of Fame, like a rushing leader, like just like someone who brought juice to this offense, like nobody's business, someone who I thought would be a wonderful 1-2 punch to Josh Jacobs. I mean, like someone who was like, I thought was still going to be able to contribute right to this team in 2024. despite the injury history the last few seasons. Add on the fact that he's now playing for a division rival. Because I also think, I mean, besides like, again, like the emotional fan aspect of it, because I think he still has juice, like now the Packers have to face him twice a season. Like that is brutal. Just all of it. Just, it's kind of like this offseason would have been perfect, I think, if not for that stain of losing Aaron Jones.
I wrote down there's a little of the Bucks trading away Drew Holiday to get Dame Lillard, and then Drew Holiday ends up on the Celtics. And that's just like, in a way, how that stings so much. And you've got Aaron Jones, who, again, they didn't send to Minnesota. They released him and decided to go with this other running back at the same position, hoping to get better in Josh Jacobs. And then now Aaron Jones ends up with a rival in the Minnesota Vikings. It felt a little bit like that, where you're playing a little bit with fire because you're thinking you're getting maybe a little bit more explosive at the position. And in this case, a little bit younger, and maybe get the bigger name or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be better. And as you mentioned, we understand the thinking at this point. You're hoping that, if you can get 15 games out of Josh Jacobs, where maybe the Vikings only get 8 games out of Aaron Jones, that can be a significant difference one way or the other. But that I totally agree with you. And then the other one I just had is like a very small, I don't hate it in any way. I don't actually even think it's bad, but Keyshawn Nixon, 3 years, 18 million was probably a little on the higher side than maybe I was expecting. Not a bad deal. I don't mind it. But if this is my least favorite offseason move, again, it just goes to show you there were not very many bad offseason moves by Giddey.
Yeah, they had a great offseason, like genuinely. I mean, literally losing a beloved player for, like, again, reasons that we can really understand, is truly the only blight. It's been a pretty masterclass few months in terms of roster construction by the GM.
It's hard not to look at again, as you were saying earlier, as you look at, like, try to find weaknesses on this team, it's hard to look at the depth chart and be like, where is the weakness? And again, outside of maybe kicker, it's just really hard to find.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about going into this season?
Yeah. So you hit on it a little bit. But I'm really excited to see the young team and the young talent on this team kind of take that next step, right? Because we saw like really awesome glimpses in 2023. We also saw some struggles. The struggles were early on. We knew that they were going to happen, right? They overcame adversity, which was really awesome to see. We know that they can do it. But and this kind of goes into the next one, if you don't mind me.
Yeah, go for it.
Pairing the two. Then the next one is what we're most nervous about going to season. But I think the young team needs to take that next step, because now they're being viewed as contenders. They should be, right? They absolutely, this Packers team absolutely should be viewed as contenders after making it as far as they did into the playoffs, and just the way this roster is being constructed. But at the same time, this team now has to handle expectations. And that's what I think most nervous about, because handling expectations, and again, totally different teams, totally different quarterbacks, all under the same head coach, but under Matt LaFleur they haven't handled expectations, I think, all that well. And now obviously expectations previously have been, you have Aaron Rodgers, and expectations are Super Bowl, but expectations for this team should be Super Bowl. Versus, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but at this point, I think, they almost made it to the NFC Championship game last season. This team and this talent, and if Jordan Love continues to play the way he has, the expectations should 100% be Super Bowl. And if you ask this locker room, they would tell you their expectations are Super Bowl. So it's taking that next step. And then how are you handling that? Because last year it was, wow, look at this team. Look how far that they've gotten. Oh my God. Nobody expected you to be here. Now everyone expects you to be here. What do you do with that mentality? Right.
It's funny because in 2010, that season for the Packers, I always felt like 2010 was going to be the setup for 2011, and 2011 was going to be the team that really took off. And I'm like, that's going to be your Super Bowl team. And 2011 was the one loss team. They were sort of set up to be that team. But 2010 was clearly, obviously, the year they won the Super Bowl. And you never know, just when you're thinking of yeah, you know what, maybe they are one more year away, and that, 2025 is going to be the year that they take off. Sure. But guess what? It could just as easily be 2024, because they have all the pieces that they need right now. And here's the other thing. there's zero doubt in my mind that Goody believes that as well. Because if you don't think that you're there right now, you don't go sign Xavier McKinney to a massive deal. You don't go sign Josh Jacobs to a big deal. You don't go and address all of your needs in the draft very aggressively. He knows, this Packers team knows. And that was also my biggest nervousness going into the season for the next one was expectations. Just how do they respond to it? And what I'm most excited about, you go into, your birthday, we'll say, excited about your presents that you're going to get. You don't know what those presents are going to be, meaning like it could be socks and underwear, or it could be like the greatest thing you've ever got. I am ready to be hurt again, Perri. I am excited about this defense. And I don't know. I'm excited going into it. I don't know if it's going to be socks and underwear or if it's going to be the greatest gift that I've ever gotten and I will remember for the rest of my life. But I'm excited for it. And I'm ready to be hurt all over again. I know better. I should know better. I do know better, but I'm going to get excited anyway. I'm excited for the defense.
I think it's fair. I'm excited for this defense also. Like, it's hard not to be given who they've drafted. It's hard not to be when it's a biggest mystery. Like, it's hard not to be when it's a beautiful mystery, right? We get to project and wonder and fantasize, right? Right now it's what we hope it will be. Yes, I just spoiled our next one. It's biggest mystery. Mine is Jeff Hafley's defense because we have no idea. We have Ohio State and we have BC tape, but we have a few interviews with him. We have a little bit, I think you mentioned before, like a glimpse into it, given who they've drafted, the type of playing style and versatility that these guys bring. But like, we have zero clue what they are going to look like week one. I mean, literally zero clue. We'll get some better idea once they start playing together in training camp. We'll get even better idea in preseason, but everybody knows that nobody actually trots out the real defense in preseason. It's very vanilla. It's very base because you're not trying to put the real stuff on tape yet. So it's going to remain a mystery until September. We hope I'm excited with you, right? The mystery piece is what makes it exciting. We hope it's going to be this more aggressive playing style. We hope it's going to be a little bit more, man, less soft. We hope it's going to be a lot more attacking, again, based on the guys that they've drafted. I think you tweeted it and I had to send it to my dad because it's something that he's been asking, like raging for, but like more 4 guys with their hand in the dirt. I mean, just like there's obviously changes that are about to occur, but we won't know until September.
So I took a positive spin on this one for my biggest mystery. And that's, what does this new Jeff Hafley defense unlock, or who does this new Jeff Hafley defense unlock? For the last few years, especially, people have been saying that players have not been playing up to their expectations because they have not been used correctly. I have heard even from some whispers from within the building that they believe Devonte Wyatt will be completely unlocked within this Packers Jeff Hafley defense, that he's going to be able to get upfield and utilize all of his talents and strengths a bit more, be more of a aggressor, be more of a disruptor, and that could potentially unlock him. I think a lot of people believe that Quay Walker could be unlocked in this Jeff Hafley defense, that Carrington Valentine, Eric Stokes, Jair Alexander playing a more aggressive attacking brand of football could be unlocked, that maybe LVN and Rashawn Gary could be a little bit better with their hand in the dirt on the outside and actually rushing that way. Maybe it's none of them. Maybe it's all of them. It's probably something in between where a few of these guys do look better and maybe a couple of the guys look worse as well. It's always within the realm of possibility, but I want to see, was it, you know what? We just overvalued these players. Guess what? Even in a new defense, new attacking style, they just weren't that good. And now we've got to figure this out and figure out a way to either replace them or try something different, or, guess what? This is Jeff Hafley's defense. He knows how to use these guys and it unlocks them. And we see a much different brand of football player from some of these top guys that we were hoping were always going to be stars. And now maybe a few of them actually can be stars.
Love that so much.
I know. I took a positive spin.
Unlock our first round picks, Jeff. Go
Would be
for
so,
it.
so nice. Because I mean,
Yeah.
we all for forever we talked about how many resources they put into this defense, and we
Yeah.
didn't get the return on investment on it. So the question has always been, did they invest in the wrong things, or was the chef the wrong one using the ingredients incorrectly? And now we're about to get a really,
Yes.
and obviously it's not apples to apples because you get a Xavier McKinney and Edrin Cooper. They got some other pieces that could unlock that talent as well. But trust me, I'm still keeping a very, very keen eye on it. All right. Player you can't wait to watch in preseason. I'm going to go first on this one. It's Jordan Morgan for me. I talked about earlier that I do believe that this offensive line needs to take a step. I need to see some of these depth pieces really show me that they can go in and be ready to play and start. I saw some really good stuff already in rookie minicamp that, you know, I'm excited about with Jordan Morgan. I want to see him in preseason. And again, it's not the be all end all. He could be awesome in preseason and struggle week one. Who knows? But I really want to see if he shows that he can be a legitimate starting left tackle or just really good offensive lineman right away. And I think that could be a huge piece. And again, making sure that Jordan stays upright through the course of the season. And, you know, is that quarterback we all think he can be in that with that line that he needs to be successful.
I love that. I feel like people were so meh about the pick, you know, because like it's not a sexy pick, but if he's gonna, I just protect 10 at all costs. Like as many resources you want to put in to protect your franchise quarterback, like do it. And if Jordan Morgan is gonna end up developing into like the future left tackle, the future whatever he's gonna develop into to stay on that line for as long as 10 stays in the building, like it will end up being one of the best picks that Goot could make,
Yeah.
you know, even though it's not exciting, you know, even though I wanted Terry and Arnold, like, you know, it's probably like second most important. It's like you can have the QB, but if he can't get the ball out,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd say your favorite or player you're looking forward to, I should say.
I'm so excited about Marshawn Lloyd.
Ooh, I like that.
I know everyone, you know, everyone's super buzzed about Josh Jacobs as he should be, right? He, you know, best guy in 2022. Raiders offense wasn't it. Like, let's see how he does out behind a good offensive line. But like, I'm pumped about Marshawn Lloyd. I've been watching so much of him in college. He's got some juice. Like, he's fun. I think they're going to be a really fun tandem. I'm really excited to see him in camp. I low key think that he's going to come in and contribute right away. I mean, like right away. I know that he's not going to, you know, he's not going to be your 3 down back. He doesn't have to be. And I think that's like perfect for him. He is a bulldozer. Like he, you know, he has some things to clean up, but like, again, he doesn't have to come in and be your day one, like every down guy. And I think that's perfect for taking the time to hone some of the skills that he doesn't have. So I can't wait to see what he can do. I'm curious what he looked like at rookie minicamp.
Oh, it was really fun. You saw all the stuff like the ability to get tiny through holes because he's, you know, smaller dude, but he's 220. So getting in the open field. And then obviously they're not doing any tackling drills, but you could see easily how like just arms would bounce right off of him. He's got an unbelievable little lateral cut, which is really, really fun, where he just has like a lateral jump cut, but it happens very, very quickly. And he's so low and centered and has a low center of gravity that it just like flows really easily. And then he shows burst and acceleration in the open field. There's like, you blink and it's just poof. And that blend all together. Like you don't get all of those things usually in one back. And I think that's what makes him a very unique, dynamic running back. And I think he's a perfect fit to tag team with Josh Jacobs. And then obviously you still have an AJ Dillon and Emmanuel Wilson. So it should be a really fun running back group, I think, going into camp.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something about like like when he was in the open field in college and he just gets going, there's no taking him down. I mean, like scary. And I don't think he had that fast of a 40 time, but to be honest with you, it doesn't matter. I mean, your play speed is what matters. And he has some crazy, crazy acceleration. And just like the broken tackles and just all that. So yeah, I mean, I know like the fumbling thing was kind of the issue in college, but I think that can be coached out of him. So I'm pumped. I'm pumped about Marshawn Lloyd.
Totally understandable. And after seeing him in person, I am very excited about him as well. I will end with this one: player or players that aren't getting enough buzz, who we're not talking about, we've sort of just forgotten about, that we need to kind of bring back to the forefront and be like, hey, these guys matter too.
I want you to go first on this one.
All right, deal. I also took a little bit of a cop out on this one. If I have to say one, I'm going to say Tucker Kraft. I mean, if I had to narrow it to one person, I'll go Tucker Kraft, because I think what he did in the second half of last season sort of went under the radar when Musgrave went out. He became a legitimately really good tight end in the second half of last year. Pass catching, run blocking, pass protecting. He got so much better from day one to end of the year, and I really want to see that continue. But I'm just going to, if I'm going to cop out on it, I'm going to say the entire wide receiver tight end group. We haven't talked about them. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about them at all, and understandably so, because they're sort of out of mind. We don't have to worry about them. They already showed us what they could do a season ago. But man, my goodness, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Bo Melton, Malik Heath, even Ben Sims, freaking Tyler Davis is back as a potential special teams ace again. Like, just that entire group, I could not be more thrilled and excited about. And we haven't talked about them at all, because it's just sort of been, yeah, they're good. We don't even need to talk about them. So I'll just go that entire group.
Yeah. My answer was going to be the wide receiver group. But just like, we're like, oh, they're set. We're good. We've got like 5 or 6 roster locks. Like, we don't need to talk about them. They're fine. I am a little bit like kind of also honed in on Christian Watson. Matt has like made it a point to like bring him up on multiple occasions when he speaks, just like how healthy he looks and all that. And obviously, like, you got to get onto field, you got to get the pads on, you got to see it like consistently. But
Yep.
Christian, like, we forget, like, when Christian is healthy over the course of games, he changes the entire offense. Like, everyone likes to focus on, oh, the hamstrings, oh, the soft tissue. But like, I think if they can like really figure it out, which it sounds like they did this offseason, I mean, man,
Yeah.
watch out. I mean, watch out. They took this guy early second round. Like, this is a major, major, major weapon that we just like are not talking about, because everyone's just assuming he's going to be like unhealthy again this season. Like, let's not go into the season with that assumption. Let's manifest a healthy Christian Watson, because I'm really excited about that.
I understand it's human nature to sort of sometimes, unfortunately, focus on the negatives, but it is astounding to me how much like immediately we focus on the half of his career, whatever it's been. It hasn't even been half, but like whatever it's been that he's been out with the hamstrings, and almost say nothing about the other half that has been fantastic when he has been on the field and healthy. Like the touchdown production in his time when he's actually been in games, the big plays that he's been able to generate, just all of it.
The other thing for me is that, yes, his production and like what he's able to do when he gets the ball, whether it's deep or like just the ball in space, and his speed, but also the way that defenses play differently when he's on the field. He doesn't even need to get the ball, and he pulls defenders away. He opens up this offense without doing anything. He just has to run a route. Like, it's actually, it's like mind blowing a little bit how much they respect his speed. So if opposing defenses are respecting the Christian Watson ability, his fan base should be as well.
If people were pining that much for Christian Watson insurance, it goes to show you how much that he, can matter when he's out on the field. And instead of getting Christian Watson insurance, I would just love to have Christian Watson. Then I totally get everyone wants him to be out there every play, and he needs to go out and prove that he can go out there and play a full season. But man, I'm right there with you. I am not giving up any stock in Christian Watson, and I'm very much hopeful that 2024 can be the season where we see a 17 game plus Christian Watson playing at his highest capabilities and really breaking out in a major way. Perri, that does it for our superlatives. Any other thoughts you want to get out there, or anything else that's on your mind?
Wow, this was fun. This got me really hyped. I think it has been now that we've like done this sort of introspective of the
Yeah.
Packers offseason, I'm like very impressed with some of the moves that they've made. I think this roster looks like kind of night and day different. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they had gone into 2024 with the roster they had in 2023, naturally they still would have been a very good team. They were a very good team in 2023, but like they've plugged so many holes. And I think they've gotten stronger in areas they were already strong. They've gotten stronger in areas that they were like legitimately weak. Like there's no area, like, you know, even last season there, we were like, okay, this is a good roster, but we still have like a lot of questions of safety. You know, there's no room where I feel that way. So ready for them to get out there and like start putting it together on the field, because that's obviously very important. You don't win games on paper. But right now all we have is on paper. And on paper
there's no perfect evaluator of talent or what's going to happen in the future. Everyone's going to get some stuff right, some stuff wrong. And that's why I always say, like, even if I don't love a signing, or if I don't love somebody that they released, or there's something that I don't like about the offseason, what I always hope for is that I can see the vision behind it. And not only is there not anything that I really dislike about this offseason, but B, it is extremely easy to see the vision behind what they were trying to do and what Goody was trying to accomplish. And he did it, I think, at a very high level, which I think leaves us all super excited going into the season. And I think we can probably leave it right there. Perri, tell us all where we can find all of your amazing work with Packs What She Said, and anything else you want to plug.
Oh yeah, just follow me on Twitter at Perri_Goldstein. You can follow the other podcast at Packs What She Said, PWSS podcast with Maggie Loney. We're weekly in the off season, bi-weekly during the season. Yeah, that's about it.
Make sure to go give them a follow. They're the absolute best. You can, again, find them on Packs What She Said, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find the Pack a Day podcast at Pack a Day podcast, so smartly named. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL, and again, Perri at Perri_Goldstein. That's going to do it for us today. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.